Jai Shri Krishna. Here again the dialogue opens with a bundle of questions from Arjuna. He says, O Krishna, what is Brahma? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adhibhuta? What is Adhideva? What is Adhijagna? And O Madhusudana, how a person can concentrate on you at the time of death. He makes a very special request to know more about the realization of God at the time of death. Shri Krishna starts with word Aksharam, means the imperishable and eternal, is the supreme Parabrahma. The entire world is rooted in Brahman. As far as the eyes can see, it is indeed the manifestations of Parabrahma, the Supreme Soul. The nature of Parabrahma is indeed inexplicable, means very difficult to explain in words. But during the process of learning and austerities, as we move from one perceptual experience to another, we are able to realize the omniscience of the Lord at the heart of entire creation. After the personal experience of the ultimate reality, everything becomes clear. Now, in reference to the answer of second question, what is Adhyatma? Shri Krishna explains that the nature of the self is called Adhyatma. The path of spirituality is also Adhyatma. The science of soul is also called Adhyatma. The study and the experiential knowledge of the self is also called Adhyatma. Now coming to the answer of third question, what is Adhibhuta? Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that the elements, those contribute towards the composition of macrocosm and microcosm, is Adhibhuta, which is perishable aspect of the divine potency. In the entire creation, the potential dynamism, the splendor, the glory, and charisma of the Supreme Lord can be seen very vividly and very clearly. The entire creation is indeed the expressive aspect of the Supreme Divinity. Adhibhuta has been called the Akshara Bhava because the material structure is made up of 5 elements such as ether, air, water, fire, and earth. All these elements integrate and disintegrate with time and cause change in the field of relative existence. Birth and death of everything is the expressive aspect of the eternal process of evolution. This natural course of change is called Kshara Bhava, means the perishable nature. The creative act is karma, which is the cause of everything in the world. The entire creation comes into existence from one bhava or one thought only, which is the primal urge, ek se anek, which means let me be many. This one thought, bhava, has been the creative force since the beginning of creation and is still very powerful. We can see that everything in nature is spreading, forming various roots, seeds, and eggs. Every single seed grows into millions of similarities. Every seed has the inherent desire to become a tree. Then again, the tree has the inherent desire to become a seed again. Ek se anek, let me be many, gives momentum to the cycle of samsara. It applies to all beings and everything in macrocosm as well as in microcosm. For example, in human body, the cells are constantly splitting and giving birth to new cells. The old cells are dying and being replaced by the new ones. The Vedas have explained this so beautifully. Yatha purvam kalpayach means everything being replaced by the identical ones. The inherent desire, let me be many, is primordial yet ever fresh all around in creation. Shri Krishna tells Arjuna about the mysterious cycle of creation, originating from Brahma and going into Brahma. All creatures keep revolving into the rounds of birth, death, and rebirth until they realize the bondage for themselves and make efforts for their liberation. Every individual soul comes into existence out of compulsion, bound by the laws of karma. Everyone in this world is moving as if programmed in a certain software of latencies, memories, desires, karmas, and sanskaras. This software is called the subtle body, which is the subtlest spark of Brahma. It is indeed the Brahma, the Creator, who brings forth the entire creation. Now the question may arise, who is Brahma? The word Brahma is different from the word Par-Brahma. The word Brahman or Par-Brahma means the Supreme Soul, and the word Brahma means one aspect of the Trimurti, the Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. Brahma is the creator of the universe. The word Brahma has been derived from the root word Brah, means to grow and expand. Brahma is the cosmic subtle body, Mana, Buddhi, Ahankar. All the thoughts, karmas and sanskaras are the creation of mind, intellect and ego. It is under the slavery of mind, intellect and ego the soul becomes helplessly bound. Every new birth is an expression of the respective data programmed in our software. The entire creation is an expression of the conditioned behavior ruled by mind, intellect and ego. The present moment is the manifestation of thoughts from yesterday and also forerunner of tomorrow. The thoughts, desires and memories which stay dormant in the deepest layers of our consciousness appear on the surface of the conscious level at the most appropriate moment and find their expression in karmas, which keeps the wheel of creation in motion. Every individual creates the new birth for himself in accordance with the respective data programmed in his own software. Shri Krishna has used the word same multitude of beings, means the consciousness moving within itself and creating millions of forms and shapes in space and time, bound by the conditioned behavior. People check in this world with the baggage of old desires to be fulfilled, and also check out with some baggage of new desires because of their additional shopping in every new life. Most of this behavior is very unconscious and quite unknown to the individual himself. It happens compulsively and helplessly. It is our slavery to thoughts, desires, and dreams that helplessly brings us back to the rounds of birth, death, and rebirth over and over again. To make it more clear, Shri Krishna has also used the word avasham, which means moving helplessly, pushed along by the memories, desires, and latencies. Here I would like to share some beautiful lines by Umar Khayyam. He says, "And that inverted bowl we call the sky, where under, crawling cooped, we live and die. Lift not thy hands to it for help, for it roars helplessly as you and I." While describing the nature of karma and destiny, here Shri Krishna is conveying a powerful message that for liberation in present life and in life hereafter, one must change the inherited habits of the conditioned behavior and false identifications. A complete understanding of the conditioned self and the pure self is really very important for freedom from the bondage of memories and sanskaras. It is the heightened state of consciousness which helps the person to watch and monitor every little wisp of thought in the programmed data of desires and memories, and to rise above the binding influence of every activity in his day-to-day life. When the conditioned self and transcendent self become united, the individual moves towards liberation, step by step, and becomes free from the bondage of birth, death, and rebirth. Each new human life brings an opportunity for self-realization and liberation. Those who make efforts, they regain their lost empire. But others, those who don't realize their slavery, they remain revolving in the cycle of samsara, which goes on and on. The pursuit for liberation starts with a conscious shift in our thoughts. When we start questioning why my life is so conditioned, why every event takes place so helplessly, why I feel bound and pushed along by the circumstances beyond my control. The pursuit and inquiry gives us the clue of bondage, and then we make efforts for liberation. Shri Krishna makes it very clear that transcendental experience is a blessing, but is surely attained by one's own efforts. Now coming to the answer of Arjuna's next question, what is Adhideva and Adhijagna? Shri Krishna says, O Arjuna, in the macrocosm as well as in the microcosm, all the gods and goddesses are controlled by the Supreme Lord. The controller of these devas is Adhideva. According to the ancient scriptures, there are many prayers addressed to a large number of gods and goddesses present in our body as well as in the cosmos. For example, the 9 parts of DNA have their counterparts in the 9 heavenly bodies known as 9 grahas, which includes sun and moon. DNA revolves around hydrogen bonds, which corresponds to sun god, the giver of life on planet. Phosphate corresponds to moon, cytosine to Mars, sugar to Mercury, guanine to Jupiter, thymine to Venus, adenine to Saturn, and enzymes within the DNA to Uranus and Neptune. The recent studies in Ayurveda are also making it clear that the 12 parts of the nucleotides of the DNA are connected with the 12 birth signs. This is the reason why all the special and daily worships in a Hindu family are performed while giving due importance to the presiding nakshatra, the constellation, the birth sign, the position of sun, moon, and other 9 planets. All the 5 chief elements, those constitute the body of the universe, have been also considered gods and goddesses. The worship of these deities is performed out of appreciation. These powers are working in a cooperation with each other in order to support life on planet. Respect for the blessings of nature has been highly emphasized in the holy books of all religions, so that human beings can learn from the cooperative efforts of these cosmic powers. All the 3 aspects of Trimurti are the representations of the different attributes of the Supreme Parabrahm, and all of these draw their power from one original source. Similarly, there are gods and goddesses in the human body. Those help the different organs to work in perfect cooperation with one another. All these devas in the body work under the direct control of the Supreme Divinity and also with the power of the Supreme Divinity. There is one vital force that presides over the inner cosmos and guides the entire functioning of the body. This work order of perfect cooperation for the sustenance of the body is called yajna. The perfect work order is maintained by the controller of the body, the Lord Himself. Shri Krishna tells Arjuna, I am the Adhiyajna here in the body. He is trying to convince Arjuna that the Supreme Self is indeed the essence of the entire manifestation, whether it concerns the individual body or the cosmic body. All the voluntary and involuntary activities of the body are only the various manifestations of the transcendental consciousness. All kinds of worships in the form of rituals and prayers are directed towards one and the only focal point, which is Par-Brahm. He is not only remote from us in some supreme status beyond, but He is here too, in the body of every being, in the heart of every man in nature. The Supreme Lord Himself becomes everything which is manifested in the universe. God is the source of all life, the animate and inanimate. Appropriate perception of the God's manifestation is indeed the greatest achievement of spiritual life. The entire creation is rooted in God. It is His divine potency which is expressing itself everywhere. The Lord Himself is everything which occurs in the material, psychological, and even in the spiritual realms. Although perennially established in peaceful transcendence, Lord is Adibhuta, Adideva, and Adhiyajna, dwelling in the bodies of all beings. After giving answers to 6 questions of Arjuna, Shri Krishna proceeds to answer the last question in reference to the realization of God at the time of death. He tells very clearly that it is the ruling thought in mind at the time of death which guides the person into the next life he goes. It's really so true that the personality of every person is determined by the quality of his thoughts. Our entire life revolves within the cycle of past, present, and future. The thoughts and feelings which we experience at present moment are the product of yesterday, and all that which we are thinking today makes the life of tomorrow. So the highly cherished thought of our lifetime definitely becomes the ruling thought at the time of death and determines the destiny in future. The journey of the physical body ends at death, but the journey of the soul goes on. Death is like a long sleep from where one wakes up into a new life. It is a transition. As we see in our daily life, our dreams are usually the manifestation of some thoughts, those flashed through the mind during that day or somewhere in past. Just one thought becomes one dream. Exactly like that, one ruling thought leads the soul into another body. Our scriptures declare, Yatha mati tatha gati, means the soul goes into the thought where the mind is settled at the time of death. It is the last thought at the time of departure from body, which is the culminating point of all our memories and sanskaras. I will repeat it again. It is the last thought at the time of departure from body, which is the culminating point of all our memories and sanskaras. In this reference, there is a true story from the life of someone I would really like to share with you. There is a family in Zambia where a little girl, Rina, went through some very traumatic experiences. This little girl at the age of 6 suddenly started showing some very unusual behavior. She insisted to visit a family that lived in the nearby town. Her parents felt very difficult to deal with the problem. They didn't know anything about that family. When the little girl Rina became very hysteric about the whole situation, they consulted their family doctor, who suggested to fulfill the wish of their daughter. So one day they decided to visit that particular family. When they were driving, the little girl Rina, who was only 6 years old, gave directions and the address of that particular home where she wanted to go. When they reached there, she quickly jumped out of the car and dashed into the house as if she knew everything about that family. First of all, she went into a room and looked at everything around, as if she was searching for something very specific in mind. While she was looking around at the photographs and other things, suddenly a 7-year-old boy entered that room. The moment she saw that little boy, tears rolled down her eyes. She touched him, hugged him, and immediately forgot everything as to why she was even there. For her, it was like coming out of a deep sleep. Both the parents felt very strange about the whole incident. When Rina's parents inquired about the mother of that 7-year-old boy, they were told that the little boy's mother had died at the time of his birth. During the conversation between both the parents, it became quite clear that in her previous life somehow the little girl Rina had been the wife of their oldest son who died in childbirth about 7 years ago. It became quite clear to everyone that at the time of her death, she was worried about her newly born baby. After she was born in another family in the nearby town, the desire to see her newly born remained suppressed for a while, till the age of 6. But slowly it started appearing in the conscious mind and ultimately became the strongest desire, and she felt restless and depressed. Now, after meeting her baby boy, the desire and anxiety was satisfied and the remote memory disappeared. The well-being of her newly born was indeed one of the ruling thoughts that determined her present life. So when Arjuna brings forward the question for Shri Krishna as how the Supreme Lord can be realized at the time of death, Shri Krishna tells that anyone who leaves his body thinking of me alone at the time of death, he attains my supreme state because of his perpetual absorption in me. This is indeed a fact that we cannot meditate on God at the last minute of our departure unless we have learned to live in the consciousness of God during our lifetime. The love and devotion of God during lifetime educates the individual to experience the presence of the divine at the time of death. If a person lives a life in the awareness of the Supreme while working in office, while eating, while talking, or doing other activities of life, the contemplation on God comes very effortlessly at the time of death. Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that living a life in the perpetual awareness of the divine should become a state of mind, a style of life. The Supreme Lord must become our perpetual companion, consciously present in each and every thought, word and deed. It is through the practice of yoga a person can remain aligned to the essentiality of the soul and operate in the physical world through the guidance of the Supreme Soul. at the time of death. It is the yogic practice which helps the person to experience the inner vision which guides him for a single-minded meditation on the Supreme Purusha. The dialogue becomes interesting as Shri Krishna explains in detail the secrets of life here and hereafter, the art of living and the art of dying. In order to experience the unity with the Supreme Soul at the time of death, we have to practice mantra meditation very regularly. At the time of death, a person usually recollects the past memories. His entire life runs like a videotape in his mind. And that's the reason why in every religious tradition, the relatives and friends sit around the person in order to make his departure peaceful. They read the prayers and hymns from the holy books. That does help to some extent, but the real effort for alignment with the source of life has to come from the person himself. Concentration on the incoming and outgoing breath with meditation at the special psychic station in the body makes the last minute very easy and comfortable for the departing soul. The thought process can be brought under control only with the rhythmic flow of breathing. When the mind settles in the breath, and the breath settles in the heat, and the heat in the Supreme Soul, the departure of the soul from the body becomes very effortless and peaceful. Shri Krishna mentions about Agnirjyotira Shukla Shadmasa Uttarayanam, means the fire, light, daytime, etc. The fire and light stand for the heat in body. This path of light and fire has been called Achira path in the ancient scriptures. At the time of death, it is surely the heat in the body which guides the life force to make an easy departure from the body. It is the heat that keeps the breath in balance and the awareness of the Lord clear and precise. When the mind is alert, the yogi can direct the life force in the desired direction. Shri Krishna mentions about the concentration on the primordial sound of Om. He tells Arjuna that at the time of death, the person should focus his attention at the heart center, Anahat Chakra. When the life force becomes settled at this psychic station, it enters into the temple of the heart and joins the primordial nada, the sound of the holy syllable Om. From this station, the person should direct the infused breath with the vibrating sound of Om upward at the Anjana Chakra, the space between the two eyebrows. When the life force withdraws itself from all the other 9 gates of the body and moves upward It gradually settles between the two eyebrows, which helps in concentration on the sound of Om. Slowly, the body consciousness starts failing, and the person becomes more and more conscious of the Supreme Spirit. This is the yogic way of leaving the body. A similar type of explanation has been given in Katho Upanishad also, with concentration on the rhythms of breath, with the vibrating sound of the holy syllable Om from the heart center. The person should direct the breath upward as the wind is forced out from a flute. Out of all the 101 arteries of heart, there is one which goes upward to the crown of the head, the 10th gate of the body, Brahmarandra. Departing from this gate, from the top of the head, the soul is liberated. The yogi who is ever connected with Lord in yogic unity, who acts in yoga, thinks and moves in yoga, he definitely leaves his body in the light of yoga. The inner silence at the time of death helps him to leave body with concentration and clarity of vision. The yogi who lives his life in unity with the Supreme Parabrahm, he naturally leaves his body meditating on the Supreme Parabrahm. He does not have to make any special efforts for alignment to the source of life. The person who knows the art of living, he definitely knows the art of dying. For a yogi, death becomes a celebration. That's why Shri Krishna says again and again, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yog yukto bhava Arjuna. O Arjuna, be a yogi, live in yoga and work in yoga. He tells Arjuna to understand the importance of yogic unity in life and learn to live in the awareness of the divine under all circumstances. It is through the practice of yoga we can remain grounded in the essentiality of the soul and work in the world with the guidance of the Supreme Soul. It is through the practice of yoga we can learn to live in yogic unity and die in yogic unity with the Supreme Parabrahm. After giving some glimpses of the techniques which help the person in God realization at the time of death, Shri Krishna draws Arjuna's attention back to the concept of Ananya Bhakti, means undivided devotion for the divine. Although it's important to learn and practice the various techniques of yoga and meditation, but these techniques become more rewarding if supported by Ananya Cheta Satatam Yoma, means living in the awareness of the soul. The person who lives a life in constant adoration of the divine and offers all his work as a service to the divine, he is liberated from the bondage of karma while living in the world. Salvation and liberation after death doesn't mean anything special to him, because he lives in freedom and departs from the world in freedom. Anybody who holds an undivided devotion for the divine during his lifetime, for him meditation on the sound of Om at the time of death comes as a second nature. He lives his life in harmony with the primordial nada and also he departs in perfect peace with the Supreme Self. When the association with the Supreme Self becomes the joy of life and the richness of every moment, the life becomes an eternal reservoir of peace and happiness. Shri Krishna declares in clear words that anyone who thinks of me without deviation, who offers himself in my service with undivided attention, surely attains me and all my love. He always lives under the blessings of my blissful umbrella, always in my protection and always within my reach. For him, the highest aspiration of life is closeness with the Divine and service to the Divine. It is indeed a fact that in perpetual unity with the Supreme Lord, the individual is blessed with the rich experience of his own immortality. Anybody who becomes aligned with the Supreme Self in yoga during his lifetime and dedicates himself to the service of the Lord with undivided devotion, he is definitely blessed with the vision of the indwelling divinity at the time of death and attains salvation. Shri Krishna has highly glorified the power of the holy syllable Om. The sound of Om has been upheld to be the root mantra. The sound of Om is the whisper from the unified field of pure consciousness to itself, and the entire universe is just the orchestration of this whisper. This sound from Brahmanada wraps the entire creation. Everything in macrocosm as well as in microcosm is the sequential unfoldment of this mysterious sound, which is whispering and manifesting through every little molecule and every little atom. In Vedas also, the meditation with the sound of Om has been highly glorified by the Vedic sages. This mystic syllable from the unified field of consciousness is known as the Bij Mantra. Heard by the Vedic sages in deep meditation at a specific level of yogic unity in transcendence. The great Mother Gayatri has been revealed from the holy syllable Om, and from Gayatri has been revealed the entire knowledge of Vedas. The sound energy of the holy syllable Om is a connecting link to the entire universe as well as to the deepest mysteries of the Supreme Self. There is a long description of sound meditation in Samveda, and Yajurveda also explains about the contemplation on the sound of the holy syllable Om. Kato Upanishad declares that Om is Parabrahm itself, and Mundak Upanishad describes about the unity in meditation with the mystic sound of Om. Chandogya Upanishad opens with the declaration Om iti etad aksharam udgitam upsita Om iti ridgayanti. Singing and meditating on the sound of Om as Udgita accelerates the mind and helps in going into the ecstasy of divine love. The mystic syllable Om has the power to awaken within the mind the corresponding God consciousness. It prepares the mind for going into the quietness of the self. Through constant repetition, the mind gets into the habit of being absorbed in the spiritual ecstasy created by the holy syllable Om. Concentration and meditation on the sound of Om is indeed a vehicle of spiritual illumination. It helps the person to regulate and harmonize the entire thinking faculty into a certain order. It gives the insight and ability to experience the mystic reality through a very simple method. Although we can start our spiritual pursuit according to our choice with verbal prayer, hymns, and yajna, but slowly we need something short and concise, brief but comprehensive in expression, which can touch the deepest layers of our consciousness, and the sound meditation on the holy syllable really does it. Concentration on the sound of Om connects us to the indwelling Supreme Self as well as to the entire universe. Brahman holds within itself the totality of everything in the universe. The philologists believe that all the vowels have originated from Om and have asserted that if we concentrate and repeat the vowels for few minutes like A, E, I, O, U, the sound of Om can be heard resonating very clearly. Om is considered to be the source of all the alphabets in Sanskrit and the source of all the languages. It is also believed that the basic 7 sounds of music have originated from the primordial nada Om. The sound of Om is really difficult to capture, but the person who meditates regularly, he can capture the sound very effortlessly. According to Mandukya Upanishad, Om symbolizes the triads in time and space and also the 3 stages. A for the waking stage, conscious level, U describes the sleep, and M stands for the dream. Yet another theory describes A to be symbolic of Vak, word, U for Mana, mind, and M for Prana, the vital force. When Om is written in Sanskrit, there is a curved line on the top which indicates dreamless deep sleep when the individual soul goes through the gap into unity with the universal soul. This half syllable leads the meditator into silence. The dot on the curved line represents the supreme divinity in us. Omkaram bindu sanyuktam nityam dhyayanti yogina kamadam mokshadam chaiva Omkarai namo namah. Omkarai namo namah. Meditating on the dot is going into the unified field, which is beyond the 3 levels of consciousness. Meditating on the dot is going into the silence of the self. This stage is known as Turiya in meditation. 3 syllables also describe the 3 stages of evolution in the universe. A stands for Adimata, the beginning. U stands for Utkrishta, the sustenance, and M stands for Miti, annihilation. It also describes Akar, Ukar and Makar, combined together Omkar. Akar stands for Ishvara, Yukar for Mool Prakriti, and Makar for Maya Shakti. This means that everything we see in the universe is going through an evolution. It comes into existence, it is sustained for a while, and then it is gone. Everything is enclosed within the grasp of swift-moving time. Meditation on the holy syllable Om helps us to get in touch with the various stages of consciousness and experience the reality of the world. The mystic syllable Om also stands for Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the cosmic cycle of creation, sustenance, and destruction. The primordial sound of Om is called Brahman, which holds within itself the totality of everything in the universe. It is the sound of Om which can be heard with concentration at the heart center. There are 7 well-known psychic stations in human body called the 7 chakras, the junction points. These psychic stations are located along the Sushumna Nadi, where 2 psychic currents, Ida and Pingala, cross each other. In meditation, with the proper alignment of the spine, the primal energy is aroused from the base of the spine and directed to travel upward through all the other stations along the Sushumna Nadi. Only a small spark of the dormant energy from the base of the spine can really open up this entire passage along the Sushumna, the Brahmanadi. Although it is difficult to pinpoint when the conscious concentration becomes settled in meditation session, but definitely concentration on the sound of Om leads towards the higher realms of transcendence. In yoga meditation, the awareness is guided through these stations with full consciousness to the Anahat chakra. At this center vibrates the celestial sound of Om, which can be heard in deep meditation. When we withdraw our attention from all other external sounds of the sensory organs, this primordial sound can be heard automatically. At the grossest level, the sound of nada is more or less like the sound of humming bees. A little deeper, it can be heard more like the melody of a flute. The third sound is more like the far-off ringing bells. And as the person goes deeper into the subtle layers of consciousness, the nada is heard like the sound of the celestial conches. Further, at the deeper levels of consciousness, one hears the sound of veena, and at the subtle level, one can hear a specific sound which gradually changes into the vibrating melody and resonates like the sound of Om. The sound of Om is very difficult to capture, but the person who meditates regularly, he perceives it very effortlessly. As a matter of fact, every person in the universe is born with the sound of primordial nada, which vibrates from the Anahat chakra at the heart center. For example, little infants know instinctively how to listen and enjoy the blissful sound. As we see quite often, they smile in their deep sleep because of their inner unity with the source of life. A little baby knows how to recognize the primordial sound, but as we grow older, the external sounds overcrowd our mind. When the mind becomes involved in the external sounds, it almost forgets about the inner nada, and we lose touch with the inner sound and inner serenity. Concentration on the sound of Om brings back the memory of the primordial sound Om and helps us to recognize and experience our closeness with the Divine. The simple practice of repeating the holy syllable Om and remaining aware of the sound is in itself an austerity, which really purifies the mind and makes us very receptive to the voice of God. Sound meditation is an alignment with the supreme reality from where the flow of life receives all guidance. Meditation on the sound of Om is really not just religious practice. It is certainly a necessity of life. It helps us to live in harmony with our own inner self, with others, and with nature. Shri Krishna makes it very clear to Arjuna that the person who lives his life in harmony with the primordial nada, the sound of Om, he definitely departs in perfect peace with the primordial self. When the yogic unity with the Supreme Soul becomes the joy of life and the richness of every moment, the life becomes a celebration. The yogi knows how to celebrate life and also celebrate